Look at me. I'm Sergeant Wayne Jenkins of Gun Trace Task Force. I'm assigned to Baltimore City Police Department. I don't care. This is on camera, dum-dum. Come on, let's get away from it, because people are so ignorant.
During an interview with a BBC journalist in September of 2021, Sergeant Wayne Jenkins of the Baltimore Police Department made the following statement, quote, "Don't let probable cause stand in the way of a good arrest. If you've got to lie about what you've seen or what you've heard or what you witnessed, as long as he's dirty, he's got the drugs and he's got the guns and he did the crime, just get him." Those statements summarize the misconduct of Sergeant Jenkins during his time in the police force. When you are sure you didn't commit a crime you're being accused of, but the arresting officer is showing convincing evidence that you committed the crime, well, then chances are that you've encountered a corrupt officer like Sergeant Jenkins. If you are unfamiliar with Jenkins, he led an elite police squad called the Gun Trace Task Force, or GTTF. GTTF was a special force within the Baltimore Police Department tasked with keeping guns off the streets of Baltimore and arresting drug dealers. On March 1st, 2017, Jenkins and his 6 subordinates responded to an invitation to the Baltimore Police Department's Internal Affairs building. The squad thought that they were going there to clear up a minor complaint about a damaged vehicle. Shockingly for them, when they exited the elevators on the building's second floor, they were met by an FBI SWAT team, with all 7 members being handcuffed immediately. Unbeknownst to them, they had been under FBI surveillance for months. It was learned that the FBI had used wiretaps and hidden recording devices to gather much evidence that showed that the GTTF officers were filing for hundreds of hours of overtime that they never worked, robbing citizens, stealing drugs, and even selling illegal firearms back on the streets. The FBI also found that the squad members were experts in planting incriminating evidence on innocent citizens and selling narcotics that amounted to approximately $1 million. If you've ever read Justin Fenton's book, We Own This City, or watched HBO's true crime drama by the same title, well, then you've had a glimpse into the corrupt practices of the squad. Jenkins started his career in the Baltimore Police Department in 2003. He first worked as a beat cop and patrolled the streets of Baltimore. Research showed that he was involved in many arrests that resulted in the injuries of the suspects he took into custody. Jenkins also had a history of blatantly lying to the jury. In the book I mentioned earlier, the author revealed that in 2006, Jenkins and some other officers were involved in an altercation with 2 citizens. During the altercation, one of the officers broke the jaw of a witness named George Sneed. Sneed was also arrested, but he sued after he was released. During a court trial 4 years later, Jenkins and his colleagues lied that Sneed had thrown bottles at them. Unfortunately, the security camera footage shown at the trial proved that Jenkins's claims were false. Sadly, no complaints were put on his record, despite being caught lying more than once. In 2007, Jenkins joined the GTTF. They were tasked with reducing Baltimore's high number of homicidal suspects, such as criminals believed to have large supplies of guns and drugs. Sadly, Jenkins and his squad members focused more on the quantity of criminals they arrested rather than the quality. In fact, Jenkins was always bringing in huge seizures of drugs and guns, more than his colleagues. No one knew how the squad had massive success in arresting criminals until the FBI started its investigation. It was found that when Jenkins and his team couldn't find anything incriminating on a suspect, they would plant their own convincing evidence. Due to his supposedly high success rate, Jenkins was celebrated as a leader with an uncanny knack for delivering the goods. In fact, his success incited jealousy in some of his colleagues, so much so that they wanted to join his squad. Investigation into the criminal activities of the squad began when the DEA started looking into the officers while investigating a drug organization. They later involved the FBI. After a 2-year federal investigation into the GTTF, Jenkins, his 6 squad members, and 1 Philadelphia officer were accused in federal racketeering indictments. The 8 officers were accused of lying to investigators, filing false court paperwork, making fraudulent overtime claims, and stealing citizens' money ranging from $200,000 to $200,000. They were all given jail time ranging from 7 to 25 years. Jenkins, who was the ringleader of the squad, is currently serving a 25-year sentence at a federal prison in Kentucky. Now, moving on to number 2. Joseph Jerome Miedzianovsky. If an officer is given the title of Chicago's most corrupt cop, well, then I think we can all agree that the officer's criminal records must have been exceptional to have given him such a recognition. This is the story of Joseph Jerome Miedzianovsky, a former Chicago police officer who lived a dual life as a cop and a drug kingpin. Miedzianovsky worked as a cop for 22 years in the Chicago Police Department from the early 1980s to the early 2000s. Starting from at least 1985, Miedzianovsky, his friends, and many police informants launched a criminal enterprise that involved bribery, kidnapping clients who owed drug debts, ripping off rival drug dealers, money laundering, and falsifying search warrants to raid other dealers' homes and steal their drugs. Miedzianovsky was so good at what he was doing that his department didn't detect his criminal conduct for years. His criminal activities, though, finally caught the eyes of the law in 1998, when FBI agents placed him under their surveillance for more than 3 months, from mid-September through mid-December. During those 3 months, the FBI agents and Chicago internal affairs officers didn't catch him red-handed doing anything illegal, and they never recovered drugs from him. It seemed he had gotten tips about what was happening, so he was extra careful in covering his tracks. Unfortunately for him, the investigators found evidence that showed that Miedzianovsky had become very comfortable around drug dealers and gang members. During his trial, 14 co-conspirators cum gang members testified against Miedzianovsky in exchange for shorter sentences. In addition, the court got more than 250 secretly tape-recorded conversations of Miedzianovsky and gang members talking on the telephone. On January 24, 2003, Miedzianovsky was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And finally, number 3, William Vasquez Baez. When thinking about another ex-cop who abused his police power to the high heavens, William Vasquez Baez of the Puerto Rico Police Department deserves mention. He worked at the department from 1994 until his arrest in May of 2017. Vasquez Baez, for many years, was passionately involved in the sale of illegal drugs and the murder of innocent citizens. From at least 2004 to 2016, he was an active member of a criminal enterprise known as La Organización de Narcotraficantes Unidos, or simply La ONU. He and other members of La ONU distributed thousands of kilograms of cocaine, including cocaine shipped from Puerto Rico to New York. They regularly distributed illegal drugs out of a Bronx daycare center and protected their territory and trade through numerous acts of violence. In fact, La ONU placed Vasquez Baez on a salary so that they could use his position as a police officer to further the interests of the criminal enterprise. He also regularly provided narcotics and intelligence to his accomplices, including information obtained from the police narcotics unit. Members of La ONU would also contact him when transporting large quantities of cocaine to ensure that the shipment avoided areas of police activity. This corrupt officer was also tasked with distributing payments to other corrupt officers who regularly assisted La ONU. One of the heights of his criminal conduct was in 2006 or 2007, when he alerted La ONU members that Freddy Mendez Rivera, a local resident, had complained to the police about the drug dealings in his neighborhood. Following that intelligence, the members of La ONU kidnapped and killed Mendez Rivera. On May 9, 2007, members of La ONU hired Vasquez Baez to participate in the murder of Anthony Castro Carrillo in exchange for a cash bonus. Vasquez Baez and other members of La ONU stormed Castro Carrillo's residence while dressed as police officers. They shot and killed him. Also, in 2007, this corrupt officer delivered a confidential informant in his custody to members of La ONU, who pretended to be other police officers. The informant was shot and killed. During his trial in Manhattan Federal Court in August of 2021, Vasquez Baez pled guilty to 1 count of participating in a racketeering conspiracy and 1 count of participating in a conspiracy to commit murder for hire. The second charge was for his participation in the murder of Anthony Castro Carrillo in Carolina, Puerto Rico. On February 3, 2022, Vasquez Baez was sentenced by U.S. District Judge Jesse Furman to 30 years in prison. In addition, he was to undergo 3 years of supervised release. While announcing the judgment, U.S. Attorney Damian Williams commented, quote, William Vasquez Baez abused his position as a police officer to help a vicious drug organization distribute massive amounts of cocaine and massacre citizens he had sworn to protect. Vasquez Baez was rightly sentenced to 30 years in prison for his horrific crimes. That's all concerning this video. Which of these corrupt ex-cops do you think was the most corrupt? Do you know other officers that you think deserve to be featured in this video? Well, then share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.